Tonight in News Extra, the man who committed what may be the crime of the century. His name is John Wayne Gacy, convicted of killing 33 innocent people and destroying hundreds of lives.
If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
Do you know what made John Wayne Gacy one of the most terrifying serial killers in American history? Known as the Killer Clown, Gacy wasn't just any criminal. He hid in plain sight, performing as a clown at children's parties while committing horrific acts in secret. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy was responsible for the murders of 33 young men and boys, burying most of them beneath his own home. How did a seemingly ordinary man carry out such unimaginable horrors? And what led authorities to finally uncover the truth behind his twisted double life? John Wayne Gacy, the name that would be recorded in the dark history of the American underside, lived the life of a good, hard-working, and caring man. He was a businessman, a hard-working husband, and a father to his 3 children, and a local clown, which everyone loved. However, concealed behind this study for perfection was a scandal that was to bring disgrace to the whole nation. Gacy was born in Chicago in 1942, and throughout his early years, he had a very strained relationship with his father. Gacy's father was a functioning alcoholic who physically assaulted Gacy and his mother, all of which might have contributed to the nurturance of the young man. The elder Gacy was seriously abusive towards his son, deeming him a failure, a mama's boy. Such comments filled the young Gacy with inadequacy. Nevertheless, having had all these challenges, Gacy displayed flair for salesmanship as well as business-mindedness. He got a prosperous job and career, got married as well as started up a family. But once he relied on me, he became more and more unveiled his real personality, revealing the evil side of him. This started with having a weakness for teenage boys, which he would sexually and physically assault while threatening them to ensure they kept silent. Gacy's first criminal offense, which involved the sexual assault of a 16-year-old boy, was in 1967. He was actually given 10 years imprisonment, but he was let off after only 18 months on probation. While in prison, Gacy made sure that he transformed the image of being a bad boy to being a good boy by portraying the image of a model convict. He even formed a friendship with a prison counselor named Richard Snavely, who once attested that was responsible and indeed an adult. After his release, Gacy moved back to Chicago and went back to pretend to be a law-abiding citizen. He remarried and got another wife, sired more children, and entered politics in the area. But he never got over sinful desires, though. On several occasions, he was charged with sexual assault and battery, but these cases were either dismissed or the case never reached trial. In 1972, the cracks in Gacy's perfect image began to show. He lured 15-year-old Timothy McCoy to his home, preying on the teenager's vulnerability. The next morning, Gacy saw McCoy standing in the bedroom doorway with a knife and rushed to attack him, wrestling the knife away and stabbing McCoy to death. Afterward, Gacy belatedly realized that McCoy hadn't been attacking or threatening Gacy, but rather was holding the knife because he had just made them breakfast. Nevertheless, Gacy discovered he received sexual gratification from killing McCoy, and later said, "That's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill," according to Buried Dreams. However, the world remained oblivious to this heinous act. To the local community, Gacy was the ideal neighbor, a friendly man who hosted lavish parties and entertained children as the beloved Pogo the Clown. Gacy killed several more victims during this time period. One he left alive was Robert Donnelly, a 19-year-old college student he abducted from a Chicago bus stop. After bringing him to his house, Gacy raped and tortured Donnelly, dunking his head repeatedly in a bathtub until he passed out and performing fake executions with a gun loaded with banks. Donnelly was in so much pain, he begged Gacy to kill him, but Gacy let him go and warned him not to tell anybody. Donnelly reported him to the police, however. When officers investigated, Gacy said it was a consensual sex slavery encounter, and the police believed him, according to Buried Dreams. Gacy killed another victim 1 month later. Gacy's carefully cultivated persona allowed him to exploit the trust of young men. In 1974, he established his own painting, decorating, and construction business, offering employment opportunities to a string of teenage boys. His charisma and charm made him a desirable employer, and many young men were drawn to the promise of steady work and higher wages. Behind the facade of a successful businessman, Gacy's true nature was gradually revealed. His wife complained of his violent mood swings and his growing obsession with homosexual pornography. Eventually, she divorced him, leaving him free to indulge in his dark desires. Gacy began actively seeking out young men in Chicago's gay districts, using his charm and manipulative tactics to lure them to his home. He even employed a clever ruse, posing as a police officer to gain their trust. Once his victims were under his control, he would subject them to horrific acts of torture, rape, and murder. Gacy's victims were often young, vulnerable boys who had been runaways or were involved in the sex trade. He would lure them to his home with promises of work or companionship, and then he would reveal his true monstrous nature. As Gacy's body count grew, his neighbors remained blissfully unaware of the horrors taking place behind closed doors. His carefully constructed image as a respected member of the community shielded him from suspicion, even as young men began to disappear. It was not until the disappearance of Robert Piest in 1978 that the authorities began to investigate Gacy. Skeletal remains of some of the victims were found in the crawlspace of the house that he lived in. Gacy was arrested and subsequently charged with and convicted of the murder of 33 young males and young boys. His case raised the concerns across the nation regarding one of the best masked men who appeared to have a well-settled life as a successful businessman, though in real sense, he was a monster. The area of the house had smelled like this for many years, but Gacy had explained to all his housemates and his wife that the smell was due to dampness. During his trial, Gacy was pleading not guilty on grounds of insanity. Several psychologists testified for him, claiming that Gacy was a schizophrenic and was therefore unable to distinguish between right and wrong. Nevertheless, the jury did not accept the plea, and Gacy was found guilty of all the 33 murders of which he was accused and was executed by lethal injection in 1994. Gacy attempted to say that he had multiple personality disorder, and one of his personalities was a contractor, clown, politician, and a police officer called Bad Jack. The Bad Jack supposedly despised homosexuality, and some of the victims that Gacy killed were male prostitutes, as seen in Buried Dreams. Gacy was jailed in Menard Correctional Center in Chester for 14 years, appealing the sentence and being shown giving conflicting information about the murders in the interviews. While he had earlier pleaded guilty for the murders, he later claimed he was innocent and had a 900 number with a 15 seconds recording stating, "So." In his statements before his demise, Gacy stated that the families of the victims shall not have any sense of consolation by the death of the killer and accused the state of having killed him. The final words he uttered, it is said, were, "Kiss my But the prosecuting attorney who prosecuted the case and witnessed Gacy's execution intimated that Gacy did not speak at all. Gacy was convicted and sent to the electric chair, whereas Gacy was executed by lethal injection. If you wish to know more similar cases in true crime, then the viewer can subscribe and comment on the video.